This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is Yoda Monday morning, Monday dawn. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After chanting the meditation classics known as Pure Golden Ore and the Cuckoo Song of Noticing and Relaxing, we'll begin with the former. Good morning, James. Let's see here. Reset time, you betcha. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I do check for questions periodically. Noticing, so do your best to chant with me. You'll notice that the first vowel and the second to last vowel are bold and accented. That's when we that's when we perform an emphasis in variation to the monotone. Let's dig in. Noticing and relaxing are inexpressible beyond conceptualization. As the light of the teacher, noticing and relaxing are extolled by all. As a heart of experience, noticing and relaxing are like gentle prince. The archetype of insight and letting go, also known as Manjushri. So this is very important. Insight is easy. Letting go of it and our fear and our self-importance that accompany it, that's the rub. Resting in the spontaneous pleasure of the effortless great perfection known as Dzogchen. As the basis of all disciplines such as moral conduct, noticing and relaxing provides release in its every mode. How? How does that work? Glad you asked. You see, the late Tulku Thondup insisted that the highest love was the spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of simply noticing and relaxing. Humorously enough, this is proven by contemporary neuroscience. We cannot rely upon the front of our brain to blunt force, to brute force our way into empathy. In fact, the opposite. Allow me to drag you kicking and screaming to a visual aid. Dun dun dun, dig it a dun 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 dun, dig it a dun 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 dun, dig it a dun dun, dig a dig a dig dig dig. Okay, here we go. The more we try to focus, the more we try to analyze our way to empathy, something ironic happens. Number one, we exhaust the front of our brain to such a degree that we begin presenting with symptoms of depression. And number two, we trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, which I think you would agree are the complete opposites of the peace and the love that most of us desire. Fortunately, neither our amygdala nor our prefrontal cortex, specifically the dorsolateral or medial regions, constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider, if you will, the simple spinal cord, whose fancy name could be the hub of our autonomic nervous system. The more we take a break from the exhausting habit of actively competing against it, and instead vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, fleetingly cooperate with it, then what will happen is automatically the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed, and the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently and non-neurotically stimulated. Not to mention, we wind up stimulating the awareness and the peace latent within both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Naruto, how are you? So, Naruto, you asked a very good question, and I've got an annoying answer for you. Brace yourself for the annoyance. according to archaeologists and anthropologists, our ancestors were most fulfilled when they lived a Paleolithic lifestyle, when people were described as, in large, being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. About 13,000 years ago, during the Neolithic Revolution, we departed from proto-communism to proto-capitalism, and human society was turned on its head. And from then, human society has been largely conditioning us to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. So Yang's religious patriarchy says, how can I control with what I feel? And Yin's spiritual matriarchy asks, how can I make peace with what I feel? It's not a question of verbiage. It's a question of physiology. See, if we try to focus or analyze our way out of what we feel, we just make it worse. We just get more sad and more anxious and more aggressive. However, when we cooperate with the hub of our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, something amazing happens. We're able to cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Allow me to illustrate. We'll begin with mindfulness, which is the seventh fold of the Buddha's eightfold path. Every time we inhale, we are wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, the hub of our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like. All of them, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with that which we notice? What are we to do with the turmoil in our lives, in our bodies, in our minds? The one-word answer is meditation. You see, every time we exhale, we have already evolved to automatically access both the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions working as a team could be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that during each exhalation, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. When I was in fourth grade, I don't know about you, but when I was in fourth grade at Platte Ranch Elementary School in Woodland Hills, California, my teacher explained to me that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so we find that there's nothing mysterious about emptiness or about not self. They're just metaphors to describe the fleeting yet poignant experience That's weird. The fleeting yet poignant experience latent within each exhalation. So our job is not to choose what we feel. In fact, indulging our controlling tendencies in the name of selecting our emotions creates more problems than it generates. But through the cunning use of noticing what we're experiencing and relaxing into it, our choices and utterances and deeds are less controlled by our survival instincts. So our survival instincts are peachy keen if we're being chased by a bear through the woods. But 9 times out of 10, they do more harm than good. Therefore, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever turmoil or peace we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if they were melting into the simplicity of just emotion. And so we don't lie to ourselves about what we feel, but by cooperating with our autonomic nervous system, we're able to cope with what we feel in a truly beneficial way. We're able to cope with what Shakespeare described as the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Let's go back to, now I hope that, so no, pineal gland is a different place. It's a different organelle. There are many, so you've hit upon a good question, Nicola. Within our central nervous system, there are many organelles. There are many components. The more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow, not from a calculated contrivance, not from wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. The more we will use all the organelles of our brain in the most sustainable way. So we have a choice. We can indulge our controlling tendencies and overuse some organelles, underuse other organelles, and be completely miserable. Or we can cooperate with our autonomic nervous system in a way that ensures not only that we'll use all the organelles of our brain, becoming fully stepping into our genius, but doing it in a sustainable way, in a physically sustainable way, in an emotionally sustainable way, in a interpersonally sustainable way, in a circumstantially sustainable way. I hope that helps. Let's go back to the text that we are chanting. Let's see. Well, I get to push the OBS button, and I get to, let's see, I get to tap button 7, and now I get to play with Word and tap the right document. Cowabunga, here we go. So, the essence of morality is simply love. 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. Kindness exercised by our intention, by our communication, by our, let me rephrase it this way, intentional kindness, interpersonal kindness, physical kindness, and circumstantial kindness. Kindness of intention, kindness of communication, kindness of conduct, and kindness of commerce. These are the natural effects of us spending at least once every 12 hours, spending at least a few minutes taking a break from our exhausting habit of actively competing against our autonomic nervous system and instead spending several minutes vulnerably, passively cooperating with it in a system that we call noticing and relaxing. Let's continue from the top. As the basis of all disciplines such as moral conduct, noticing and relaxing provides release in its every mode. Noticing and relaxing are Buddha's mother and the natural path. Without noticing and relaxing, enlightenment could not manifest. We are the way of supreme liberation. What does that mean? Whatever we experience, as long as we can notice it and as we breathe in and relax into it, even to a limited degree as we breathe out, becomes the way of liberation. Our perceptions, our emotions, our intentions, our thoughts, our memories, and our imaginings. Sounds like the church. Could you please be more specific? I'm sure in your mind you have something specific, but unless you use more specific, like, for instance, what sounds like church? And is it a good thing or a bad thing? If you could help me out with that, I might be able to respond, hopefully. Who knows? Let's continue. Subtle and elusive, this natural path transcends the duality of thinking and non-thinking. Some people, I kid you not, spend their contemplative careers trying to repress thought. That's a fool's errand. Other people try to force themselves what to think, an additional fool's errand. Without location or reference and determinant, this natural path is beyond all conceptualization. Unutterable, this natural path seems to have no color or shape. Intangible and inscrutable in all sensory field, this natural path is inexpressible. As Morpheus said to Neo in the first Matrix movie, all I can do is show you the door. You have to walk through it. I can tell you how to sit. I can tell you how to hold your body. I can tell you how to coordinate your breathing with your body and your breathing with mental recitation, mental intention to notice and relax. But there is no substitute for you doing that yourself. Together. However, whoever follows the path of the ancient ascetics becomes sick from attachment to that contrivance of focusing. The literal interpretation of the teacher's instructions is experienced as an arduous quest, as they chase a stream of beliefs and concepts as if pursuing a mirage. For this natural path cannot be indicated by mere words, and any rigid, fearful, or elitist grasping at so-called true doctrine makes a travesty of Dorje Sempa, the archetype of simply noticing and relaxing. The Vajra he holds represents noticing, the bell he holds represents relaxing. It's very tough to see the bell. I think I'll use a different image. So quick like a bunny, I'm going to hit insert pictures, this device. Come on, machine. Pictures, Buddhist Yoga, Dorje Sempa, Rupa if you prefer. And let's try. Let's try this one here. Okay, so I'm going to hit wrap text, and I'm going to hit behind text. I'm going to scroll up. There we go. Let's go over here. Let's scooch to the right. Okay, so the Vajra represents awareness or noticing. The bell represents relaxing. Purity together. Purity and impurity as one inseparably mixed. Noticing and relaxing as well as bewilderment are indivisible. This lamp of unimpeded clarity, free of conceptualization, along with obstinate befuddlement, in and of themselves, each be the samadhi of sovereign sameness. So, as we relax into our exhalation, both the clarity and befuddlement we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if they were melting into the same taste of that which is fleetingly less permanent, less stressful, less defining, less tangible, at least for a moment, until we breathe in and the cycle begins anew. This eye of direct insight watching directly relaxes into an empty nothing, and it is called the Buddha eye of omniscience. So no empty nature of vastness without center or boundary, for this feeds undiscriminating sovereign sameness. Okay, so, sounds like church. You're singing a chaotic church. Okay, that's very understandable. For years, I resisted chanting. I'm super disabled, and I found that chanting is sort of like coffee for me. It helps me to keep from being overwhelmed with lethargy, which is a side effect of having of the consequences of having contracted the Epstein-Barr virus multiple decades ago, which rewrote some of my DNA and combined very disadvantageously with my pre-existing neurological challenges of both autism and ADHD. So I found that chanting acts as a gentle stimulant to keep me from being glazed-eyed and slack-jawed. So there you go. So that's an excellent question. Can you relax while someone is talking? So, depends on what you mean by relaxation. We have evolved as complex life forms on this planet. We have evolved to relax even a little bit during each exhalation. We have evolved to automatically notice during each inhalation. Just like our computer or our smartphone has programs running in the background. Similarly, there's a part of our central nervous system already noticing and relaxing. The question is not, is that occurring? The question is, are we still a victim of our conditioning to actively compete against it? Or can we fleetingly, occasionally, and passively cooperate with it by silently and mentally reciting the verb noticing as we breathe in, and silently and mentally reciting the verb relaxing as we breathe out? We can experience a modicum of peace in the midst of turmoil, whether that turmoil be circumstantial or physical or interpersonal or mental. So there is a very popular tantric icon of two naked Buddhas sitting in tantric union. And the question is, can you meditate while making whoopee? Can you meditate while having sex? Yes. Can you meditate while you're watching TV? Yes. Can you meditate while someone is being a screaming behemoth? Yes. Is it? And that's why we spend at least 10 minutes every 12 hours in formal practice, so that when we go through the rest of our day, we have a reference point. Our body gets more and more used to cooperating with his own autonomic nervous system. So someone wrote WSG. I'm not sure. I'm not cool enough to know what that means. Would you spell that out for me, please? In the interim, let's chant. Noticing and relaxing as well as their habits are one inseparably mixed. So, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever centered spontaneity or contrivance we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could both melt into the simplicity of just mental phenomena. Let's continue. All manifested experiences shun as adornment, for they are merely generated by mind, neither accepted nor rejected. Simply let it be and enjoy. Easier said than done. When I was a little boy in the 70s, at school we sang the song Let It Be by Paul McCartney and the Beatles. And even as a kid, I was thinking, that's easier said than done. How do we let it be? By cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. Together. Even activity that is personally repugnant or culturally taboo, such as the 5 mental poisons of dread, desire, delusion, jealousy, and pride, or the 5 so-called unforgivable crimes of matricide, patricide, maliciously wounding a Buddha, stealing offerings, or religious how do I pronounce it? Divisiveness, could feed the realization of sovereign sameness. For on this path of visceral purification, no pleasure is rejected, not even sex. So visceral purification is different than, is intrinsic. It's, external, intrinsic, extrinsic, yes. So instead of using extrinsic purification, where we chant or bow or confess, we use the internal purification of simply cooperating with our own autonomic nervous system to notice and relax. That's the most efficient way to transcend destructive habits and to invite the arrival of insights that will help us on our journey of personal evolution, on our journey to become the person that our dog already thinks we are. Together. The intellect could be awfully conditioned by the elitism and rigidity of tradition and literalism, such as the three contrived analogues of samadhi's awareness, bliss, and love, as well as the dogmatic belief and doctrine, which are the delusions that undermine effortless transmission. Instead of such folly, let us abide. So let's go over here. So here's one of the saddest things. And to share with you this sad thing, I'm going to once again use a visual aid. So let us explore a tale of two cousins. We have Gautama, the archetype of Gautama, who is known as the Buddha, and the archetype of Devadatta, who is known as the Buddha's foolish cousin. So Devadatta was enthusiastic to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. He saw the success the Buddha was having as far as teaching and having followers and stuff like that. So he said, hey, man, I want to be a part of that. And so he like a wolf in sheep's clothing, he pretended to become a disciple of his cousin Gautama. And then after he learned all the terminology and all the techniques and how to look the part and how to sound the part, he busied himself being divisive and literally split the community of ordained and lay practitioners. That didn't last very long because they could tell after a while that all his followers could tell that although he was charming and he was really good at being divisive, he wasn't wise and he wasn't helpful. And so he lost all his students and eventually he came limping back. So I like to look at this as an archetype of proto-Buddhism and institutional Buddhism. And let's go back to the text. I'm going to tap button 7 and hopefully hit the right text. So in my experience over the last several decades, what I've found is that minions of institutional Buddhism will hear the subtle, easy teachings of proto-Buddhism and then do the opposite, and then say that anyone who doesn't do the opposite is not a Buddhist. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? You know, it's like Christians, some Christians who look at the Bible and read that God is love and then teach their congregation that empathy is bad. That is not unique to Christianity. That is not unique to Buddhism. As long as they're humans, we will experience the Sturgeon's Law, which reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including humans, including teachers. So there are many people. So the Buddha taught that one can master his path in as little as 7 days. The Buddha taught a path that was easy and quick. If you have someone in your life who says, no, it's difficult and long, thank them for their time, but run away from them, because what they're teaching you is literally the opposite of what the Buddha taught. Let's continue. Instead of such folly, let us abide in the treasure of the free-form great perfection known as Ati Yoga or Dzogchen. Together, the core of sublime the core of I need some water. The core of sublime spontaneous awareness, imperturbable, unchanging, and unelaborated, is the ambrosia of the timeless consummation of spontaneous awareness and entities that vanquishes the pain of any exertion, thus resting in the here and now. Every ambition is spontaneously fulfilled. In the here, we can still remember or imagine other places or other times. Let us not make the mistake of institutional Buddhism and confuse mindfulness with concentration. Concentration is a prison cell. Mindfulness, spontaneous, vulnerable, the vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting practice of mindfulness is the opposite of the prison cell of concentration. Together. Hey, magnificent one, listen, all and everything in experience shares the same empty nature of noticing and relaxing. It is like an all-inclusive essential drop capable of being controlled by the duality. Sorry, I missed a syllable. It is like an all-inclusive essential drop incapable of being controlled by the dualities of elaboration or concentration, expansion or contraction, generation or cessation, unconfined. It is simply being. This inconceivable essential noticing and relaxing, always present like the sky, everywhere present like space, transcends ideas and speech. So we've explored a wealth of ideas. Let's see if we can organize them into 6 succinct couplets, known sometimes as the 6 Vajra verses and other times as the cuckoo's song of noticing and relaxing. The nature of multiplicity is Oopsie, let's go back over here and hit 8. The nature of multiplicity is non-dual, and things are naturally pure and simple. Being contrivance-free in the here and now, shining out in all forms, it is always all good. This innate perfection renders exertion redundant, and love-centered spontaneity ever natural. Whoops, look at that. Well, by pushing the wrong button, I undermined your ability to chant with me, so let me see if I can repair that. Let's go back and hit button 7. And let's go over here, hit end, and 1, 2, 3. Here we go. The natural multiplicity is non-dual. The nature of non-multiplicity is non-dual, and things are naturally pure and simple. Being contrivance-free in the here and now, shining out in all forms, it is always all good. This innate perfection renders exertion redundant, and love-centered spontaneity ever natural. There we go. Having completed our opening chanting, we now turn our attention to the practice. Oops, did I forget to push the button? I did. Where is my head? Let's hit button 4. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us sit and notice as we breathe in, as well as relax as we breathe out. Let me check the time. Okay, there's not much time left. A famous meditation teacher uh, once explained cryptically that meditation is simply my thinking, no thinking. That is a wonderful metaphor. Let's break it down. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever thoughts might have cartwheeled across a stage of our mind during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less tangible. At least for a moment, until the next inhalation when the cycle begins afresh. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.